Welcome to Back on the Broomstick,
a modern witch's spoken word grimoire,
where two witchy friends from way back are reconnecting to their pagan roots after a long period of mundanity.
We're rewalking the path of the wise and trying out all the latest spells, rituals, and magical theory in today's witchcraft and pagan practices.
So grab your wand and your incense,
your cauldron and your crystals,
and join us
as we get
back on the broomstick.
Welcome to Back on the Broomstick. I'm Layla, and on this Valentine's Day episode, we're talking about Valentine's Day history and the hows, whys, and why nots of sex magic.
I'm Chelle. I'm glad to be here. And you know what? Take a moment, put your earbuds in. This is not a family show this time. We want to let you know we are going to be a little bit sexually explicit.
This episode is going to get a little steamy, maybe a little scandalous, definitely a lot witchy. If that's your jam, stay here. If it's not, go listen to a couple of our other episodes, maybe.
I just want to sing Missy Elliott's "Get Your Freak On." I don't know why, but let's talk about, before we dive in to the joys and wonders of sex magic. We want to take just a brief minute and address all of our wonderful folks who have been sending us mail. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, especially thank you. My birthday was just recently and I am overwhelmed in a good way. I am overjoyed and so thrilled with all the birthday cards, all the presents. Oh my gosh, you guys are amazing. We're going to have a mail call solarium where we go over everything because it's a lot and it's amazing. You guys rock. Thank you so, so much for all the birthday witches.
From my perspective, my back hurts. You know why my back hurts?
Why, Chelle?
From carrying all your birthday mail back from the P.O. box.
That was really nice, especially because I was not particularly feeling good on the weekend of my birthday and in bulk. Just seeing all the cards and all the birthday wishes from you guys really, really made my day. So thank you from the bottom of my witchy heart.
And on top of that, we're still getting Yule mail.
We had said that if you send us a Yule card, we'll send you one back. Well, shit, we got a Yule card last week.
Like literally last week.
I think that's going to have to be the last one.
And, you know, I want to give an extra shout out. And I know we didn't talk about this prior, but I want to give an extra shout out to the West Coast. Okay, let me rephrase that. The Midwest and the West Coast, you guys really, you stood up to our mail call. I think we got more mail from the West Coast and the Midwest than anywhere. And I was amazed. Thank you guys.
Yay, West Coast. Woohoo.
Now, we just want to let you know that we are two folks here. We are two lovely witches, and we literally have hundreds of mail. We are getting to it. We are getting to responses. We are getting to sending back Yule cards. But we obviously can't respond to every single piece of mail. I already got a little carpal tunnel.
We're going to do our best to respond to as much of it as we can on air. We'll be doing mail call solariums. We'll be doing some more Ask the Witches episodes. And we will definitely be getting a lot of the questions from the mail that's sent to us. There are people who have asked us not to mention them on air. So if you don't want us to, just go ahead and put that on your card. But otherwise, we will definitely respond to as many as we can on air. And some we will respond to traditional mail by hand.
By snail mail.
Yeah, there you go.
And if you're new to our whole P.O. Box thing, drop us a line, drop us a card, whatever the mood strikes you. P.O. Box 106, Salem, Massachusetts, 01970.
So if there's something that you want us to share with our listeners, go ahead and send it to us in the mailbox. And more than likely, we will mention it on air. Can't guarantee we'll mention all of them, but we will try.
Especially tea. We love tea. Keep it coming, folks.
I'm going to say a quick thank you to the person who sent me that delicious, delicious tea.
So Nancy from New York, by the way, shout out to New York. We love you. Nancy sent Crimson Berry Fruit to Stain from the Arbor Teas Company.
Yes, which is a beautiful blend of my favorite tea, and I am so excited about it. So thank you, Nancy. But on our mail call solarium, we are going to have a funny story about that particular tea blend. So
Nancy, you have to listen to that solarium because we've got a funny story for you.
Again, thank you guys so much. We will definitely be having a mail call solarium coming up and going forward regularly where we'll address all the wonderful mail you guys have sent. That being said, today is Valentine's Day. This episode is coming out on Valentine's Day.
You know, Valentine's Day has a storied history. It really became what it is because of American pop culture. Some people actually literally say that the Hallmark card company, the greeting card company, created Valentine's Day.
It
It
didn't,
didn't,
though.
though. But I think that Hallmark created a sense of guilt for couples across the land.
They most definitely did. Yeah, Valentine's Day also did not come from Lupercalia, which is another holiday that happens right around the same time. Valentine's Day is February 14th, and Lupercalia is February 15th, roughly. And they have some themes that cross over with each other, but they're not exactly the same thing.
A naked baby that has a bow and arrow.
Cupid, I don't think he had anything to do with Lupercalia.
Okay.
Lupercalia was a Roman festival celebrating Faunus, the god of agriculture, and also the she-wolf that raised the twin founders of Rome, Romulus and Remus. And so this festival is to bring prosperity and to bring fertility, and they would sacrifice animals, and then they'd take the hides of these sacrificed animals and they would whip them lightly. I don't think it was really hard, but they would lightly whip them on women in the streets, and it was supposed to help bring fertility.
That sounds kinky.
Kind of, yeah. And they also supposedly women would write their name like on lots and cast them into this well or something. And men would come through and pick one of the lots. And then those two people would have to couple up for the festival or for the next year.
You know, probably not the time or place, but I'm going to say it anyway. That reminds me of like a 70s key party.
I kind of had the same thought when I saw it. I was like, this sounds an awful lot like a key party.
It really does.
It was really to promote fertility, to promote not really love, not romantic love for sure, but definitely fertility ritual. But Valentine's Day came more from a legend of a man named Valentine. But this was also in Roman times. Supposedly around the 3rd century BC, there was an emperor, and he was trying to build a really strong army. To do that, he said that no one in his army, none of the young men who came into the army could get married, because he felt that if they were longing to go home to their wives or to their children, to their families, that they wouldn't focus on war and killing. So he said, no marriage. But this priest, Valentine, decided to let people get married in secret. And then when it was found out, they sentenced him to death.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, right?
How come back then, no matter what you did, you were sentenced to death?
I don't know. They pretty much were like, let's just get rid of the problem entirely. I don't want to deal with it. Off with their head. Literally, he was sentenced to death by beheading. Very romantic. So Valentine became a saint in Christian theology for daring to perform marriages against the will of the emperor. He was a champion of love.
Sounds pretty pagan to me, just saying.
It really does. We do like people who subvert authority, I guess.
Right?
But Valentine's Day didn't really become a thing until Geoffrey Chaucer talked about it in one of his poems, but it was about birds, that birds would choose their mates on St. Valentine's Day. And that's really the first written history we have of Valentine's Day.
Okay, that's a little weird, and I'm not gonna lie. Why are we writing poems about birds mating?
Well, it was allegorical. Chaucer liked to do allegorical things.
Okay. So basically,
he wrote a lot about sex and love and hid it in other ways.
So there are multiple, I don't want to say celebrations or holidays, but there are multiple things in February that have to do with creation and love and things of that nature. So this is kind of the designated lovey-dovey month.
Well, think of Imbolc. We're already looking at the lambing season, right? Like in the belly, and the fertility is about to start. So it makes sense. Everybody's about to start making babies, so let's make sure everybody's really fertile before we go do it. So this is what that's all about, right?
Sounds like a plan.
In the 17th century is when people started passing notes around and calling them Valentines.
Aww.
Yeah, and there was actually the mother of the American Valentine was a woman in the mid-19th century. Her name was Esther Howland, and she was from Worcester, Massachusetts. Worcester? Worcester?
It's Worcester, which I learned. It's Worcester. So for all of which by the way, we have a ton of Massachusetts listeners. Hey. I am learning how to say your words in your cities and your towns. It's Worcester.
Worcester. Okay. Worcester, not Worcester. Hey, I didn't say Worcester. Let's just start there. I was close.
Kudos to you for that. Kudos to you for that.
Esther Howland was from
Worcester.
Was from Worcester, Massachusetts. She was known for making these elaborate Valentine's Day cards. She's the one that really put the ribbons and the lace and the pictures. She's the one that really kind of made the idea of giving these super elaborate cards very popular.
I've actually seen some of these on the internet, and like these are fancy, super fancy. But she was actually kind of commissioned, the way I've heard it. I heard it, she was actually commissioned by a greeting card company.
All I know is that she's called the mother of the American Valentine and made super fancy, crafty Valentines. That's the extent I know about her.
And then Hallmark came into the picture.
And then she got bought out by Hallmark. Yay! I hope she got good money for it.
Now, I do understand that people look at Valentine's Day as kind of corporate America trying to cash in on your love.
I do look at it that way.
I do, and I hear you, but I am also all for. We live in a shit show of a world, no matter what country you're in right now. The shit's just weird. And to have one day designated for either you and the person you love, you to love yourself, you to love thy neighbor, have a what do they call it now? A Galentine's, you loving your friends, whatever it is, setting aside a day to be appreciative of the love you have in your life is not a bad thing. Damn it.
That's true. And I also learned about April 14th, which is called Black Valentine.
What's that? I've never heard of it.
It's in South Korea. I discovered that in South Korea, they have three different Valentines. There's Valentine's Day, there's White Valentine, and Black Valentine. And the Black Valentine is April 14th. And it's when singles, people who didn't get any gifts or didn't go out with anybody on the first two Valentines, they go out and they have this comfort food dish of black noodles and they'll eat black foods and dress in black. And it's the whole idea of caring for yourself, taking care of yourself on this day if you didn't get a Valentine.
Sounds like a funeral of love.
Right? I don't know. I just kind of liked the idea that there were different types of Valentines depending on who you were. I thought that was kind of cool.
I don't like how it is guilted, especially on Americans. It's like you're guilted into celebrating Valentine's Day, or you're like shamed if you haven't. And I don't like that. But I do like there being a day where everybody just loves everybody. And I kind of celebrate two, we'll call it two Valentine's Day too. We all do. And I know you do. Your anniversary. I mean, we do the same thing
That's
on
true.
Valentine's Day as we do. It's like our two times a year where we celebrate loving each other. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. You know, my partner and I don't necessarily celebrate Valentine's Day too terribly much. We never really have done much of anything for it. At most, we might get some good takeout, but I don't think we've ever really done anything for Valentine's.
We do the card thing.
Yeah? You do nice cards?
Cards and chocolate.
Aw.
Well, I have no use for $100 dozen roses. That's ridiculous when in March you can get a dozen roses for 19.95. Like that's corporate America taking advantage of my relationship, and I don't like that. But a nice, beautiful card that I know he sat at the store and read every one and found the perfect one. There's something to be said for that in my world.
You know, there's no real pagan origins. People like to say Lupercalia is the origin of Valentine's Day, and it's not exactly. Just like Groundhog's Day is not the
It's not,
origins of
yeah.
Imbolc. Just because they're kind of have similar ideas and they're close in date.
Doesn't make them the same.
Yeah, and the same thing with Lupercalia and Valentine's Day. So there's no real pagan origins of Valentine's Day, but that doesn't mean that we can't take that energy of everybody thinking about love and relationships and sex and channel that energy into spell work. And it doesn't have to be spell work about sex or relationships in order for you to use that energy to empower your spells.
Now, we're going to shift into the good stuff here, folks, but I want to start out with a couple of misconceptions real quick. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to talk about a couple of things that sex magic is not.
Yes, let's do it.
And maybe I'm not starting at the right point, but this is where you kind of veered me in this direction is sex magic doesn't have to be magic with love. It doesn't have to be magic with creation or procreation. Sex magic can be for prosperity. Sex magic can be for financial things, for worldly things. You know, I'm trying to get a job.
Yet sex magic is just a way to raise energy. Sex magic doesn't have to have anything to do with sex or relationships or love. It is
Right.
merely, not merely, but it is one more way to raise energy.
Just like in the past, we've talked about you can raise energy singing, you can raise energy chanting, you can raise energy dancing, drumming, having sex. When I think of sex magic, I look at it as sex as the tool, the conduit to gauge that energy, get it all kind of bundled up into one big ball and shoot it
Yes.
out to the universe.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk about different ways to do that, how to focus that energy, why you might want to focus that energy in a little bit. But another thing that your witchy aunties here want to remind you of is that this does not have to be heterosex. This does not have to be group sex. This does not have to be anything other than what you're comfortable with. Can be any kind of sex. We're just talking about raising sexual energy in a consensual, in a fun, in a pleasurable way.
Just say it. What you're saying is it can be with a partner or you can be Han Solo.
That's right. With a partner, any partner, as many partners as you like, or as few partners as you like,
Or no partner.
or no partner, as long as everybody involved, including yourself, is having a good time and is all on the same page.
I don't know why everything about this episode is making me think of songs, but all I can think of right now is Pink. It's just you and your hand tonight. That's okay too.
Well, yeah, that's actually a really easy, fast way to rub out a spell.
Oh,
There you go, right? No, yeah, actually, that's probably the easiest way to do sex magic is by yourself. One of the things that you just said, Shell, got me thinking because sex magic is the tool, and actually having sex follows a lot of the same patterns that casting a spell does. It's very similar to the steps of a spell or a ritual.
yep.
You start out slow. Maybe there's breath work. Maybe you're gazing into each other's eyes or a mirror. You start out very gently, very slow, and you're building that energy. And that's when you're kind of stating your intent.
Can I stop you right there? And let me back up just a little bit further prior to that. You're going to want to create a space and you're going to want this, you're going to work magic. This is, like you said, either a spell or a ritual. That involves, in my opinion, the whole kit and caboodle.
Yes, setting the space.
Setting the space, you're going to want to cleanse your space. You're going to want to have that altar set up, whether you have a separate altar or you make your bed or, hey, if you're a lot of fun, your kitchen counter. Your altar, you're going to want to create that magical space and then get into the things you're starting to talk about.
It's the same thing. In a spell, that's what you're doing. You state your intent, you set the space for your magical working.
Same thing with ritual. Yeah.
Yeah, so that they match. And so they work very well to do sex as your spell. So, like Shell said, setting up the space is going to be your first thing. It is a magical spell. So, some of the things you should start out with is making sure that the space is sacred, that the space is set up to your intent.
And it can be all of the fancy pantsy romantic things too, light your candles. What I would suggest is, let's say your intention is for, I don't know, maybe you're trying to get a new job, and that's what you're raising energy for. You might want to surround the room and say green candles, things that are related, just like a spell, you're going to want to use all of those corresponding things, whether it be you're going to burn some incense in your space, make that incense or buy that incense that is conducive to your goal. Let's say getting a new job. And then, if you're going to light candles, make sure the colors correspond. Lay out some crystals. Again, build an altar. Or if your bed or whatever it may be, your kitchen counter is your space where you're going to raise your energy, make it feel like an altar. Do the things that you would do if you were going to create space to do that ritual or do that spell by another means. You're going to
Right.
do the same things.
Yeah, treat the sexual act just like you would a spell. And just like you said, make sure you can use blankets or pillows, sheets that are in the color that match. Like you said, maybe you want gold and green for success and for money
Right.
for this. And it's easier for people, especially in a sexual situation, to kind of go off into sex space. You're having so much fun that you forget the purpose of why you're there. So setting your space has the double intention of it's helping you to get into the right headspace, the right magical vibration, it's also a good reminder when you're starting to get really aroused and having a really good time and you know you're starting to lose connection maybe with reality and just think very sexy, happy, feel good thoughts. Being able to see those green candles and that green scarf hanging off your headboard will remind you, oh, right, I'm raising this energy towards getting a new job. And so you can direct that energy towards that.
I got another tip for that. Because this is more about the magic you're working and the energy you're raising to direct your purpose and not so much about the actual act of sex, you can say, have a picture. Maybe if you're trying to do something that involves success, or something of that nature, maybe you're looking, like I said, a job or to buy a house, maybe have a picture of that house or have a picture of what that intention is, because we all know that sometimes in the throes, your mind goes left turn when you're not thinking it's going to. And if you have like a visual representation, that can be what keeps you on task, so to say.
I recommend tape that right to your headboard, tape it to your
Yeah.
ceiling over your bed, tape it to the mirror at the foot of your bed, but put it somewhere where your eyes will naturally gaze on it so that it's easy to see.
Yeah. Another good thing, and I know that you are a big sigil person, is body paints are fun, by the way. I just want to put that out there. You
Yeah.
could take body paints and maybe paint sigils on each other of, again, it could be something success related or whatever your end goal is, whatever your intention is, and use sigils. You can use body paints or, if you don't want to, write them on paper and stick that paper up on your headboard. But the nice thing about sex magic is you can get super creative and have a good time doing your magic.
And speaking of preparation, like you were talking about preparing the room earlier, you can also prepare your symbols earlier. It's a really good idea to meditate ahead of time, to create a sigil for your intent, to pick a picture for your intent ahead of time and kind of charge that image with the goal that you want for the spell, like pre-charge it, get it all set up and ready.
And if you're going to have a partner, and if you're going to be doing sex magic with a partner, you definitely want their input and all of that as well, because really you're both working towards this goal. Obviously, if you are doing this solo, rock on with your bad self, but with a partner, go over these things prior, make sure you're both on the same page, because if you're directing your energy towards one thing and your partner is directing it towards something different, you're going to kind of negate each other, and then it's just sex at that point because you just killed the magic. You negated each other's intentions. So if you're going to do that prior, do it with your partner so that you're both on the same page with where you're directing this energy.
The other good thing with using a sigil for that is that if you follow the chaos magic, the Austin Osman Spare version of sigils, he really likes the create it and forget it idea where you create the sigil and then you try to forget the exact wording. You try to forget the reasoning why you created the sigil. So sex magic works well for that because if you create the sigil ahead of time and then put the sigil somewhere where you'll remember it or write it on your body in lube or in body paint, then as you're having sex and raising energy through sexual energy, you can direct that to the sigil. Then if you kind of forget where you're at or why you're doing the sex magic a little bit, that's like exactly what you're supposed to do with sigils anyway. So it'll help make it work even more.
I could tell you from personal experience, you want to be prepared prior to, because you ain't going to be thinking this stuff out during.
That's a good point. And when you're doing sex magic, when you're raising energy with a partner, it's a really good idea to follow some tantric breathing. Historically, Tantra and Kundalini energy has all been associated with sex and sexual magic. And there is something to be said for starting slow with some breath work at the very beginning, especially if you're doing this with a partner, because that's when you can really set your intention while you're just kind of playing with each other a little bit, where things are still kind of slow and you can focus on your breathing a little bit more. You can intentionally breathe. You can say certain words to trigger your spell, but that's where you're a little more mentally present and you can really set the intention
Right.
for this act and for your spell. so that later when you're really raising that energy and you're really having fun and you're focusing more on your pleasure and their pleasure, it's easier to direct the energy. You set up the framework ahead of time.
Like I said, there ain't a lot of thinking going on, so make sure the less thinking you have to do during, the better.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't have things like, maybe you can't go out and get, sheets that are colored to match what you're doing or things like that. It can just be turn on your monitor to your computer and have it just light up your room gold or light your room up purple. You can do these things with color. And that is one thing I like is kind of the color aspect, because color, it's the same with the sigil. I don't have to think about, XYZ, but yellow, it's almost like my brain can associate yellow with the intention of, you know what I'm saying? So I think,
Absolutely. I love that. I really like your monitor idea because I was going to say like those LED strip lights that you can set to different
but
colors.
again, you might not be able to afford those or get
Right.
those.
And if you don't have those, your computer monitor is a really great idea. I love that.
I'm all for cheap solutions here.
That's a good one, Shell. I like it.
But the colors, I think color association is another good thing for folks, especially if maybe you can't, maybe you're in an apartment and can't have candles, maybe you can't burn incense, whatever the case may be. That's where I think that go basic. Basic is just as good as long as you have something to focus your intention on.
Okay, and speaking of focus and tension, that's the next step of this whole process. So now you've created your idea, you know what you're doing the spell for, you know why you're raising this energy, and you've set that down. You're getting ready for a little self-love session. You've set your intention, you're ready to go. Now is when that energy is going to start building. You're going to start building towards orgasm. Hopefully, you're going to start building towards really good feeling. And so that energy is going to be raising, and you want to direct that towards something. There's two different things I recommend for this part.
Do tell.
One is raising it and directing it towards an object, like a candle or something. Like, say, we'll take your idea of doing this for a new job. So ahead of time, you've created a sigil for your new job, for money, for success, and you've got a green candle to represent that success. During the initial phase of your sex spell, you can take the candle and envision that as being the focus of your energy. Maybe take your lube and write your sigil on the candle in lube, and have it someplace where you can see it. And then as you're pleasuring yourself, as you're raising this energy, direct it all towards that candle. Push it all into that candle. And as your arousal grows, so too grows the energy. Direct it all towards that candle. Then later, once you orgasm and you push that huge, powerful bolt of energy into the candle, come down, ground, finish your spell. Now you have a candle that every time you light it is releasing some of that energy over time to kind of help you get a little bit of oomph every day when you light it.
What kind of oomph?
Well, in this case, the oomph is directed towards your job, right? The second one is an energy ball, and we'll talk about that in a minute.
Now, I wanted to mention something that I was doing a little research on this prior, and I came across a grand idea that I never thought of. And that is, you were talking about raising energy and masturbation and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to mention charging any extracurricular toys you may have under the full moon.
Oh, yeah, charging your tools for this spell before you go into the spell. Okay.
Right. But it might be a huge dildo. It's still a tool.
That's true. It is.
I mean, maybe you don't want a dildo on your windowsill, but you'll figure out a way. But you're going to want to treat your tools just like you would any of your other magical tools.
Yeah, charge your lube just like you would moon water under the full moon. Sure.
Exactly, exactly. Because again, this is more about magic and a spell and energy work, and not the focus isn't on the sex at that point. Even if you have, like, say you do charge lube, maybe that's the lube bottle you use for sex magic, and then you have different
Yes.
lube that you'll use for Tuesday night.
You know,
You know what I
honestly,
mean?
I think you should because I do very much believe that sex is magical, that all acts of love and pleasure are her rituals. Sex is, it's primal, it's magical. And I know in our culture we have a lot of shame and a lot of hang-ups, and there's a lot of pain around it because a lot of us, I don't know if I want to say I'm one on the episode, but a lot of us have had a lot of pain and a lot of sexual repression and assault. There's a lot of bad things, but I want to reclaim
A lot
it.
of trauma.
A lot of trauma. And it took me a long time. It took me working with Lilith, actually, which is a different episode, but to reclaim a lot of that sexuality. So I am not afraid of any part of sexuality any longer, but I do understand that people can have a lot of hangups about it. Part of healing from that, part of going forward from that, I think is embracing the idea that whatever you use to help you get pleasure, whether it's a toy or lube, can be sacred. It is sacred. It is part of your magical tools, and there's nothing wrong with that. They are sacred and magical.
Lube is like Florida water.
There you go.
That's my statement for today. Lube is like Florida water.
Please don't use Florida water like lube. It'll sting like a that'll sting really bad. Don't do
And
it.
you might itch.
But reclaim these things. There's power in that. And I know it's not as easy as just saying that. Trust me, I've been there, done that. But you can find power here. And you should treat these things as sacred and as magical. Put them out under the moonlight, cleanse them with smoke, cleanse them with water. And just like with crystals, make sure you're cleansing them with something that's not going to harm them or you.
And if you aren't sure, ask your local adult bookstore and they'll tell you how to clean your stuff.
There you go. It's a good idea. But charge them under the full moon. Charge them with your intent before you get into the sexual situation. And just like your other magical tools, they will add their energy to your working.
I think, and I know you've already touched on this a little bit, but I think my biggest point of advice when utilizing sex magic is we're not running a 50-yard dash here, folks. Like this isn't jump in and get to it. Like you're in it for the slow go. The most effective way I have found personally, it's a process, light touching, light kissing. Then you move on to kind of heavy petting. Geez, I sound like my mother. You're building up to it. You're not just, jumping right in the river. You're climbing that hill slowly before you jump in that river. So you want to build it up. You're not just going to start right in with full on energy. You got to gradually build that up. And I think the misconception is, let me cast a circle and let's fuck people. No, you kind of have to, I almost want to say foreplay is the biggest part of sex magic, honestly.
In Eastern mysticism, there's this idea of tantric sex, and there's the idea of Kundalini energy. And Tantra is a practice that originated in India in both Hinduism and Buddhism. It's a way to connect yourself with the divine. In witchcraft, in Wicca, sex is also considered to be a way to connect to the divine and to be divine. It's the idea of sacred sexuality. And in Tantra specifically, they talk a lot about breath and breath work and meditation. And like you said, it's a slow process. With a partner or with yourself, in the beginning, you a lot of times focus on breath and on being centered and on the idea that this is a spiritual practice. And with Kundalini, you start with your root chakra, the base of your spine, and you begin by moving that energy up each of those energy centers from the base of your spine all the way up to your crown at the top of your head. You awaken that sexual serpent, that Kundalini serpent that's dormant at the base of your spine. And you wake her up and she climbs these energy centers till she reaches your enlightened center at your third eye. And you do that before you slam it all the way back down to your root chakra. And, so it's a process. You do that whole process and that will help bring you to these higher energies.
So, in the time that I have delved into and practiced sex magic, there's been kind of two, if you want to call them guides, so to say, that I've gone back to. One of them is going to definitely be the Kama Sutra for everything you just said, all the reasons you just said. But another one, and this is a book that I've had for a long time, and honestly, I don't even know if it's still in print, but it is Modern Sex Magic, The Secrets of Erotic Spirituality by Donald Michael Craig. Those two books combined kind of what gave me my basis for my views and practice of sex magic. The Kama Sutra, that is a very in-depth book, I guess Boy, if you need a new position, check out the Kama Sutra. But those two books kind of gave me the basis of how I incorporated sex and sexual energy into my magical workings.
And I'll list those as well as Sex, Sorcery, and Spirit by Jason Miller, The Satyr's Kiss by Storm Fairy Wolf. There's also Oldie But a Goodie, Celtic Sex Magic for couples, groups, and solitary practitioners. The Ethical Slut, always a good one, but we will put all of those books in the show notes as well. A big idea with sex magic is to really feel yourself as divine, to really understand that you yourself in all your forms are divine. And who's to say that the Big Bang wasn't a big orgasm to start the whole world, right? Like sex is creation. The act of sex is creation. It doesn't always have to be a baby or a child. You know,
Right.
this act of creation, this primal energy can be used to create all sorts of things in your life.
And that's exactly where your intentions are going to come into play because that is what you are creating. You're taking your intention and creating a path for it to come to fruition.
Exactly, just like in any spell. And I mentioned earlier, I talk about the second way to raise energy, and that's more of a thought form. That's more of like an energy ball.
That's not as fun.
Instead of putting the energy into a candle, as you're having sex, as you're feeling this energy rise up in your body, you just push it into the idea of an energy ball, either at your center or above you. You yourself or you and your partner or partners just push all of that energy into this idea of an energy ball. Kind of like the Wiccan cone of power, like the idea of a Wiccan cone of power, but this is just a big ball that you push all the energy to. And then at orgasm, you fill that ball with that powerful energy and push it out to the universe for your manifestation to cast your spell.
I think the key to this is visualization, honestly. And that's an art form. And you're not always gonna, I don't want to say practice makes perfect, but damn it,
Mm,
practice makes
it
perfect.
really does.
You kind of have to, if you are not a good person at visualization and this is a path you want to go down, you might not be 100% successful the first go round because you have to kind of hone in on that, which again circles back to setting up the atmosphere, the
Yeah.
sigils, picture.
Yeah. If you're not comfortable with yourself, it might take a few solo times or a few times with a partner that you trust until you feel comfortable enough to incorporate that into your spell work. Maybe you don't feel empowered when you're naked or when you're vulnerable like that. Maybe you're not feeling that deity energy within you that feels sensual and strong. That might take time to get there, to find that.
I just like saying practice makes perfect.
There are a few misconceptions about sex magic. One, you do not have to have sex with someone to enter into their coven. Okay, I'm sure there's covens out there. If you're into that, cool. But don't let anybody force you to have sex or tell you it's a requirement if you're not feeling it.
Right?
For real. How do you feel about this one, Shell? I hear a lot about people being worried about creating soul ties by using the energy of sex magic or having sex with someone to bind them, particularly when you're on your period. How do you feel about that?
That if that is true, someone should have told me that when I was 23 years old.
I don't think it's true.
Well, too late to the game.
There you
No, I
go.
I don't think that's true. I think that you can manifest that to happen, yeah, but is that just rando happening with every person who you're poking and prodding? No.
Yeah, having sex with someone certainly can increase chemically the connection with them. That raises that, what is it, oxytocin or whatever, the kind of love hormone or chemical.
Yeah.
So it can do that. It can definitely help, but you're not creating soul ties out here just by having sex with someone on the full moon or, when you have your period or when you really want them to have a soul tie with you. That's not necessarily going to happen.
If that was the case, like I said, someone should have told me that when I was like 22.
I do feel that sexual fluids, your bodily fluids, are very powerful. After you come, if you take some of that and write that sigil, with your own cum on the candle, then that's pretty powerful. If you use your period blood, if you use semen, whatever you use, those can be powerful ways to charge sigils or to add to your spell.
But be ethical, folks. Don't hijack other people's bodily fluids.
And don't give other people bodily fluids without their intention. I know there's some spells out there that call for that. So there's a lot of goddesses out there that you can call to. Aphrodite is a big one that people talk about, the Greek goddess, love and sex and romance.
This is where I'm going to disagree with you for a sec.
What's that?
You know how I am. I can't, I just, I am a one deity kind of gal.
Okay.
I understand and I get it. Trust me, more so than a lot of folks. Hecate is not really a love goddess, okay? But we have a relationship, and that is who I call on for everything, no matter what it is. So I get that that's Aphrodite's specialty, but someone like me is still gonna call Hecate.
Okay, monotheist. If you are not monotheistic like Chelle and you would like to call upon a different goddess, you can certainly call on any deity that you like. Chelle's going to call upon Hecate for any workings that she does.
My point is it doesn't have to necessarily like if you have a relationship with a specific deity, it doesn't you don't have to veer away from that. You know, if you're doing love magic, it's not like it's going to be less potent if you're not working with Aphrodite, I guess is my point.
And I'm going to
Or do
disagree.
you disagree?
I do disagree.
Are you?
I do.
Really?
I do. I think that Hecate embodies certain energies, and I think she is brilliant and fabulous and wonderful for that. But if I want to do some type of love magic, I'm not calling Hecate. I'm calling Aphrodite or Inanna. I'm calling Freya. I'm calling Venus. I'm calling Astarte. I'm calling a definite goddess that embodies that energy, not Hecate.
Do you think I'm wrong?
No, I think that definitely works for you. And I don't think you're wrong at all. I think that for some people, if you have that one on one relationship with a deity and you want to call them for everybody, that's your prerogative. You have that relationship with that deity. For me, I like to call a deity that embodies the specific energies that I would like to work with. So that would kind of like feel like when we talked in an episode just recently about trying to use a chalice for earth, it would feel wrong to me if I'm trying to get all sexy with my partner, I want to embody Aphrodite. I would not feel sexy and hot and ready to go fool around embodying Hecate. Powerful fucking yes, but sexy not necessarily.
Yikes. I almost feel like you can be a warrior goddess and be sexy.
Oh, absolutely, and I agree with you. I think that's great.
Maybe I just need to expand my horizon. You know, and you know this. I've been so entrenched with Hecate for so long that it
Mm.
just could be a convenience thing for me. But I don't want to spend too much time on this, but maybe I need to explore your options more.
I do think if you do have a specific deity that you are working with, that deity more than likely, unless they're a celibate deity, I don't see why they wouldn't be willing to work with you for love, romance, or sex, just because that's not their thing.
Right?
So, yeah. But I did hear a couple cool things that I wanted to share,
You tell.
particularly in Norse culture. Did you know that being sexually satisfied was considered to be like a vital part of marriage? And there is actually, in the sagas, in the Eddas, there is a tale about a woman who asks for and is given a divorce because her husband's not able to make her happy in bed.
Damn.
Right? Here in America, we're not very sexually liberated, but definitely in history, people were. And Freya apparently got her pick of bed partners from any new soldiers that went to Valhalla. Freya would get to choose her bed partners first out of all of them.
Lucky girl.
Right? Fun stuff. Sex in paganism is considered to be a natural part of life. It's considered to be powerful and magical,
It's also considered to be sacred.
sacred, and equal. Everybody is equal. Everybody is allowed to have fun. Everybody is allowed to have their own boundaries. In paganism, we tend to be a little more free and open and ready to accept sexuality in all of its forms, even if it's none.
Right. You know, I think that is one major thing with the pagan community is whatever floats your boat floats our boat too.
Yeah, as long as you're not hurting anybody, you're not hurting yourself, as long as you're getting consent, as long as everybody's there and present and making good choices for themselves, go for it. We're not going to yuck your yum. Do what you want. You do you.
You do you. If you have to, you do you.
That's right. That's right. And for sex magic, it's really a lot easier to control the energies or to direct the energies when it's just yourself, to be honest. It's way easier that way.
Like I said, referring back to Pink, it's just you and your hand tonight.
That's right.
I think, I think we did cover a good chunk of this, but obviously this is a very personal and deep subject that if it is something that you're interested in doing, as we say with anything else, do your research. Make sure that above everything, intention is key. You always have to have the intention for any magical working, and this is no different. And my big thing is set the setting. Setting is everything.
And for people who have trouble visualizing, setting is extremely important. The more your space can remind you of your purpose, the easier it is to direct energy to that purpose. You want to have the whole mood be set and ready for you. And I think that's vital in sex magic because you don't want to veer off course. And it's easy to do when you kind of
Right.
get caught up in that energies. It's very powerful energy. So set and setting is really important. Have everything all set up ahead of time. Make sure you have some food and some water for hydrating and grounding afterwards to help you get back into your body and back out of that energetic space. And check in with yourself, check in with your partner, check in with yourself, make sure that, you still feel good about all of it afterwards and things are still going well. Because this is pretty powerful energy. That's a lot of energy to be throwing around.
And then, again, like with any ritual type setting, like we've always said, there's going to be like, okay, now we've had an orgasm. Now what? The same things. You're going to want to ground, you're going to want to center that same process that you would do with any other working.
hmm And I think that, again, it's kind of interesting how having a really fun time fooling around with someone and having sex, just the natural things you would do there, how easily they follow along with doing a spell. So,
Get your groove on, folks. I think communication is key, intention is key. And, if you're keeping those things in mind, you're just going to have to give it a go and practice makes perfect, like I said.
yeah.
So, Layla's going to put some books in the show notes. I would suggest maybe checking some stuff out, reading up on it a little bit. If you're going to utilize a partner, again, be open, talk to your partner, set these intentions, and above all else, be comfortable and have a good time. Because if you're not comfortable and you're not having a good time, you're not going to be able to reach your goal, reach your orgasm. And, everybody needs a good scream every now and again.
By working with sex magic, by working with this energy, whether by yourself or with partners, it can be a really wonderful way to get in touch with yourself, literally and figuratively, to really get in touch with that type of magic and to feel that energy. There's something very powerful about doing breath work, either concentrating on your breath on your own or with a partner. And the magic is in taking your time, being intentionally sexy and seductive, feeling that delicious deity energy in your whole body, that life force of creation that rises up and down your spine and pools in your root chakra like sunshine or like warm honey and whiskey. Working with that energy can really help you to get in touch with the divinity that is within you, the divine spark that is always in you. You know?
Damn.
So I hope you guys all enjoy your Valentine's Day, whether you get into the commercial aspect of it and are getting those expensive roses and dinners and jewelry, or if you're going a little old school and maybe whipping yourself with a soft leather whip. We're not going to judge.
I'm voting for Freaky Deaky. That's all I'm saying.
Have a good time. Enjoy this waning just off of full moon. And it's a beautiful time for Valentine's Day, I think. Kind of romantic.
And you know what? In the spirit of Valentine's Day and in all of this, I just want to wrap up and kind of end it with, don't forget, folks, Layla and I love you all. We appreciate you all. And we wouldn't be able to do this if you folks didn't listen. So happy Valentine's Day. We love you.
We hope you'll all be our witchy Valentines, no matter what day of the year it is. Thank you so very much for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode. In the meantime, be wise, be wicked, and as always,
Keep it witchy.